Hello again, I'm Stephen Wells, the host of the Motoring Weekly podcast for the Australian Historic Road and Racing community. This is episode 160. Now, I met with Andrew Stankiewicz, a co-founder of Garage Vision Tek, a business focused on creating amazing spaces for classic cars. They also provide a series of products to enable enthusiasts to work on their cars in a safe environment. And I met Andrew at my local radio station, being Radio Northern Beaches, for the interview. One of the focal points of the podcast is to introduce listeners to people with fascinating cars, whether they are race or road-based. And I also want to highlight the people behind the industry, those that provide the services that keep our cars on the road or the track. One such person is Andrew Stankiewicz, the co-founder of Garage Vision Tek. So welcome, Andrew, to the podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for inviting me to be here today.
We've known each other for several years now, and I use one of your products in my garage, a quick jack lifter that has certainly helped me to work on my cars safely. And I can tell you that it's saving my back getting the car to a right height, because I'm 6'5". You provided that piece of technology for me, and I wanted to start off with your mission and vision when you created the company.
Thanks for asking that, Stephen. Garage Vision Tek was initially created through my absolute passion for automotive, classic, historic and performance automotive, including supercars, as any kid that's an automotive enthusiast loves.
We do.
But so really GVT, Garage Vision Tek, I call it GVT, was created to, the core business was to envision, internally design and build only automotive-themed custom garages for classic, exotic, historic and supercar owners. That was the initial concept. And then during the pandemic of 2020-2021, I looked at pivoting the business because no one was able to go out due to lockdowns, etc.
Yep.
And so I started looking at product solutions whereby I could stay connected with my fellow automotive enthusiasts. And in so doing, the Quick Jack was one of the very first products that I had researched for many years. I had been using myself, and I always believe in products that you need to believe in yourself and you use. And I thought it was an incredible solution. And as such, the Quick Jack was the very first product that we launched through GVT Garage Gear, which is a division of Garage Vision Tek.
And so you created GVT. Were you involved in other automotive things before that, and was it a natural extension of what you were doing, or was this a complete departure, getting into something that was more of a passion and a desire for you?
I think that's a great question, Stephen, and for me, my passion for automotive stems back to when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I'm actually Polish Ukrainian background, and my father wanted his son to have a great education and go to university, as they never had the opportunity to do so, and I pursued a career in business and finance, and which landed me in the corporate scene for decades.
Yes.
And finally, as I said, probably about 10 years ago now, I decided to do something with my true passion, my heartfelt passion, which has always been high performance automotive.
Yep.
And so really that's where the vision of Garage Vision Tek has actually stemmed from. So I've always been involved within the automotive scene, involved in a number of automotive car clubs.
Yep.
The Alfa Romeo Car Club, the HDT Club, the HSV Club, Mercedes-Benz Club, etc., etc. So I really resonate very well and with I guess my fellow enthusiasts. And my wife has said to me, it's only taken you 3.5 decades to finally pursue your absolute passion.
Yeah.
And people that know me well, they know that once Andrew starts talking about automotive, his eyes light up, his whole personality changes. So, I just love sharing and just associating with fellow enthusiasts.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the people that I've spoken to, either for the podcast or in sort of private life, their connection to the motor car does typically start around the 5-6-year-old marker. I think that's when you start to appreciate some of the sights, sounds and smells of a car. And especially, from, people over 50, they came from a period where cars had a particular smell and a sound. And it's very evocative of the time. And that's one of the reasons, I think, why people go to car shows and to Cars and Coffee, because they go back and they see things from their youth, or they're introducing a car to one of their kids or grandkids saying, this is what happened, 50 years ago. Look how beautiful this thing is. And it's still running and it's still giving people a lot of joy along the way. So, and I think, again, people get to a certain age where they think, I've had enough of corporate life. There's more to it than that. I've got the time and the knowledge and the skill now to do something that I'd like to do. And I think, you've crossed the Rubicon in that phase where you've actually said, okay, let's make the change. Let's go do what I want to do. But that takes me on to my next question, which is about, you're talking about you really enjoyed the high performance vehicles. So, and you originally started with the design of garages and things before adding in more of the product focus. What was it about that design that got you started in that first?
The design side really stemmed from when, with my own garages, my wife and I have built a few homes, and within each of those residences, private residences, and within each of those, the garage space has always been my domain. It's my zen space.
Yes.
And I've always wanted to create something that was really akin to the marquees of vehicles that I had at the time.
Yeah.
And really wanted to create a space that was an extension of our living area, not just a concrete bunker per se. And I don't say there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, I wanted to create a space that was really where I could display some of my memorabilia, and a place that I'd come back from a drive and I'd open the garage door and I'd had a wow of a day out driving, and I've come back into the real estate where the vehicle is secured and be able to have that wow factor as well. And I think that's so a number of my friends, in fact my closest friend had observed over many years some of the garages that I'd actually designed, tricked up so to speak, and really decored very tastefully, I believe. And he said to me one day, he said, Andrew, you should do something with this. He said, you've got a real gift for this, and whenever you talk about this side of the automotive scene, the real estate within which the vehicles are being stored or secured, you light up. You should do something with it. And that was really a catalyst, Stephen, for me to I thought, well, I've done it for myself. Surely there's others out there that would be able to benefit from such a service if there was. And I know in the USA it's a very big market as far as garage customization goes. But in Australia, I wasn't really aware of anyone that was really offering that kind of service, an envisioning and design service, and it's internal design only, so we don't build physical garages, but we design the insides. And then project manage with custom flooring, cabinetry, lighting, audio, visual, etc.
I think you're right. I haven't heard of anybody that's doing the inside. I've spoken to a number of building designers and architects, and you're right, they're looking at the outside form and function of where that space fits in the general piece of the land. So you've got the garage next to the house, but for them that's just a place where you park a vehicle, and that's as far as they go. They just design it with a whether it's got an electric door or whatever, and that's as far as they will go. And they might pretty up the outside of it to fit in with the decor of the grounds. But you've taken that a step forward by saying, when you open the door, you're going into an environment that fits the vehicle that's there. So, if it's an Alfa Romeo, having Alfa badges or potentially cabinetry that looks similar to the design of the logo of the car, for example. So you've got that common feel around it.
Yeah.
And then looking at the way that you do that, how would you go about talking to somebody who says to you, I've just got a boring old garage. How do I make it better? What would be the starting point for you?
Look, to begin with, there are interior designers. We talk about the living space of a private residence, per se. And so we have interior designers that do wonderful, wonderful things with the interior of homes. But there is really, as far as interior design goes for a garage space, that's a little different. So I look at it from a perspective of what is the goal? The goal is to create there's three key elements to the internal design of the garage space, or I call them galleries because they become galleries in many cases.
Yeah.
But it is to create a space that's beautifully inspiring, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, it has a functional aspect for those that want function. They may want a workshop area for the practicalities of being able to work on their own vehicles. And number three, it's an entertainer. So it's a beautifully inspiring, functional and entertaining space. Yeah. And it becomes an extension of their living area. It done the right way, it will potentially improve the capital value of the property, not to mention the joy of living in that space and enjoying that space. And so when I do speak with potential clients that are looking to where do I start with this? Yeah. Well, first of all, it's what are you wanting to do? Yeah. Is this more of a showcase gallery? Is it as I mentioned earlier, is it meant to be a functional space? Yes. Are you more interested in more of a workshop style area? If you wanted to work on your classic or historic car or high performance car, whatever it might be. Yeah. I think I always say questions are the answers. Yes. And it's to ask some questions that to be a little bit more thought-provoking for the client, because I don't have customers. I believe in clients, because clients to me is about having a relationship, and I'm there to listen and to understand, and then hopefully at some point I will then be understood. Yes. And so we look at first of all, okay, what are you looking to do, and then on that basis we will then start to think about, okay, well, what vehicles are you kicking in here? Is there a theme? Are there any themes that you would like to really sort of highlight in terms of your garaging space? Yes. And that will then lead into the style of flooring that we may be looking to produce. Some of the wall coverings, automation in terms of lighting and audio-visual areas, whether it may be parking lifts and stackers or vehicle. We're now very, very focused on vehicle sliders to be able to move vehicles around within a garage space that may have some restrictions. On-surface turntables. Yes. So, I mean, they're sort of physical solutions, but in terms of the design, once again, all of those elements, and including what I do ask is, one of the questions I do ask when we first meet is, do you have any memorabilia? Which is a bit of a loaded question, because enthusiasts by their nature, we all have automotive memorabilia that we have. And I'd say, hey, Stephen, where is your automotive memorabilia? Where is it? There's a bit over there, but I've got stuff in boxes and here and there. And I said, well, listen, as part of this consultative, because it's a very consultative approach as far as the design goes, let's start bringing out some of that memorabilia that may be of sentimental value to you, and bring out that which you would like to display in some way. And what we'll then do is we'll actually incorporate that memorabilia into the overall design of the space that we're looking at, and done very, very tastefully. And some of the displays may be in acrylic cabinets, cases. Lighting is everything, so creating the right ambience within the garage space. And this is we're not talking about a massive investment. I think people are a little misled by the fact that when they start thinking about customisation and bespoke garage spaces, they we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not necessarily. And we're not there to spend people's money. We're there to listen, understand, and hopefully propose some designs. And we'll actually then start producing some 3D renders so that the client can actually see what the space is going to look like. And that's sort of that's the first step. Yes.
So you're building a relationship with your client to understand not just their needs, which is classic sales, but also then looking at some of the concerns they would have about utilizing the space more efficiently, looking at how you can improve the capital value of the property, which is, I guess, is a byproduct of what you're doing.
Yep.
But I could imagine at the end of the day, if you've got somebody with a particular, mark focus, and most of us do, have a
Yep.
focus on a particular mark of car or a particular model of car, that gives you the baseline to then start talking about, what are the ideas you're going to put forward. And I think you touched on a point of, what are they going to do in that garage? Are they just going to be showcasing their classic, or are they physically going to be working on it, and therefore they need a section that might be a little bit more technical, and you can then start looking at the mix of equipment in that?
That's exactly right, Stephen. And I said, it's really understanding what is important to you.
Yeah.
What is important to you, not what's important to me. I like to put a lot of thought to what we do. So we're not our initial consultations are not there to deliver anything in particular. It's to really understand this client, connect, as you said.
Yeah.
And if we can connect, and I think maybe the client will be interviewing me as much as I may be, and pardon the pun of the interview word, but they're sort of gauging me and saying, hey, I'm thinking, can we work together? And they're probably thinking, can I work together with this guy, or can I work together with Garage Vision Tek in order to be able to deliver and produce and deliver a result that's going to be an absolute delight for me going forward. Yeah. And do it in a way that I'm thinking also about the next generation. So we're not just talking about the current generation, whatever that might be. For example, the baby boomers, of which I am one of, but it's the generation coming through where there are beautiful classics and historic vehicles and marks of vehicles that could be a dying breed, and I would hate to see for that happen. Yes. But if these baby boomers, let's call them, can bring through the next generation and they can carry that on, carry that legacy on. I'm really looking about creating a legacy with a garage space.
And that's quite interesting, because I was at a Classic Rally Club meeting last night, and we were talking about the historic registrations, and people were suddenly saying, such and such vehicles now turned 30. And then you start thinking, that I remember that as a kid, and that's now turned 30. Yeah. Well, you've got people now in their 40s who are buying those 30-year-old cars, putting them onto historic plates, using them on a fairly regular basis within the bounds of that scheme. But they're starting to then do what we do, which is thinking, well, I'm gradually becoming a mark specialist myself, because I've got my car, I'm only 40 odd or whatever, and they're thinking about that. And that's where that next generation is starting to pick up on what we've been doing for a number of years. And so, if you've got somebody who's got a particular vehicle, they may well say to their son or daughter, this is the package, so at a given point, I want you to have this as an overall package and keep the vehicle running, because it's got family connection, it's got a family history to it.
That's it.
And that then later on means that the children and the grandchildren, and hopefully the great-grandchildren, think back to what their forebears are doing with the cars at the time, and you've provided that foundation for them to do that.
Absolutely, and I think that was very well put, Stephen. I couldn't have said it better myself, to be honest. It really is, as I said, it's legacy creating. It's multi-generational, and dad, granddad, great-granddad, in the generations to come. Yeah. But I think I believe that me personally, I would always say I've grown up in probably the best era, and I think each generation would say we've grown up in the best era. But we've come out of the industrial age, we've moved into the information age, information technology age, and particularly with automotive being our passion, I sort of gravitate very strongly to the I guess, the normally aspirated
Yes.
classic
Yes.
vehicles, performance vehicles, and that's not taking away from the new technology.
Yeah.
But I certainly gravitate very heavily to the vehicles of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Okay, that's me.
Yep.
Rightly or wrongly, but I think each to their own.
And so you're designing and then providing some product as well to go into these new garages, or just providing product for people. How do you balance that design with safety and the overall aesthetic look of what you're doing?
With the product solutions, as I mentioned earlier, I looked at starting during the pandemic a product solution side of Garage Vision Tek, and today it is known as GVT Garage Gear. We have a website, www.gvtgaragegear.com.au, and that is really just to give people a flavour and a taste of what we have researched. Every product that you would see on that site through GVT Garage Gear has been thoroughly researched. I don't look for cheap products per se. I believe there's a place for all product, but certainly that's not our market. Our market is to deliver products that are quality at a fair price, and to build relationships with the clients that purchase those particular products as solutions for them. So it was really all about, on the product side, identifying frustrations. So now, as automotive enthusiasts, I'm sure we all have certain frustrations when it comes to either parking our vehicles or maintaining our vehicles. So those frustrations, I've also experienced many of them, and hence you mentioned earlier with a portable lifting device called the QuickJack, which is a manufactured by Benpack in the USA. That was a product that really addressed a major frustration that I had many years ago, that I thought, well, if it's helped me and solved my issues and my frustration, surely there's other people out there in the market through which they can benefit from that product. So in terms of balancing GVT Garage Gear, to answer your question, and Garage Vision Tek, there is an overlap. There really is a very, very clear overlap. So the products that we now have through GVT Garage Gear, and we're continuing to research, other solutions as well in the marketplace, not only available here in Australia, but I'll look overseas, obviously through Europe, just to get ideas of what's out there and what can we offer to people here in Australia. The great southern land. So a lot of those products and solutions, they might be sliders or turntables or stacker lifts, portable lifting devices, flooring, lighting. A lot of those product solutions can then be incorporated into the actual design side of the business. So we will do the design, but we'll also then offer these particular product solutions as part of the fit out, if you will, of the Garage Vision Tek design element.
Okay. And you're not really just a simple box shifter, are you? Because you build that connection with the client, you understand what they're doing, whereas a lot of people that are supplying product are there just to sell the product and move on. You're building, and you have done with me, building a relationship where you understand what I'm trying to do with my kit, and so because you understand what I've tried to do, you've provided me with a solution for a problem that I had, which was the lifter and getting the vehicle up and fully secure so that I could work on it off the ground in the space that I've got. And that goes back to the safety of doing it, so that I'm not getting, I'm not putting it onto a bottle jack or something that could fail. This thing is absolutely rock solid when it's up on its stand. And so for me and for motoring enthusiasts, you're building that connection to say, I'm not here just to sell you a product and run away. I'm here to learn exactly what you're trying to do and to think about the future of helping with, a few more issues that will arise, because they always do for any car enthusiast. You do something and they go, you know what, I could actually do something a little bit better here.
That's right, absolutely. And I think, Stephen, it's we live in a crazy world today, a world that trust has to be earned. I think trust always has to be earned. But, to trust someone, that takes time.
Yeah.
And I looked at Garage Vision Tek and GV2 Garage Gear, particularly GV2 Garage Gear, as being a touch point. So if I'm able to deliver a solution, the right solution to that particular person, and to eliminate that person's frustration and deliver a solution for them, then immediately, to me, there would be an element of trust being gained there. But I always say trust is not earned once. Trust has to be re-earned over and over and over and over again. But then that first element of trust starts a relationship, and then we can start to connect. And once that trust someone becomes a little more comfortable with what we're doing and what we're offering, they may be a little bit more open to other areas of frustration, or maybe even looking at what can I do to create a space that's going to be a wow factor for me, and it's going to delight me in terms of garage design. So, and look, I like, you mentioned earlier about the fact that we're not here to sell. I'm not here to sell. People say, oh, yes, you are. No, we're not. Look, everyone sells their perspective, their point of view in life. We're all selling 24/7 in our waking hours anyway. But, I look at it and I say, well, if I don't believe we have the right solution, I will openly recommend another solution that I may feel is a better fit for that person's particular situation, and I'd rather they go there, and I'll recommend it. I have no issue with that, because I believe in what goes around comes around in life. So just being transparent and honest, and for people to feel comfortable that what you're offering is really of genuine value add.
One of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about was sustainability. You've actually commented earlier that we do live in a crazy world, but that crazy world means that we are all very mindful of where products originate from, out of the ground, and pretty much everything on this planet has to come from somewhere else as a raw form. How do you build sustainability into what you do, and the products you're using? Where do you find those that have got products that are going to be more sustainable for the consumer and also for the planet?
Okay. Look, I think sustainability, being an environmental steward, in this day and age, I think is a very important factor to keep top of mind or front of mind. And just to give you an example, a couple of the products that product solutions, they're not products, they're product solutions that we offer that obviously I've researched, one of which is a custom driveway solutions, driveway ramp solutions. So what we do is we actually design custom ramps, and these ramps are obviously designed by myself and Garage Vision Tek, but they're manufactured in Australia onshore, using 98% recycled tyre crumb, graded recycled tyre crumb. So once again, there's an environmental stewardship factor coming into play there. So. And also the safety factor too, obviously non-slip, rubber on rubber. Another product is a tyre cushion, or what some people call them tyre cradles, tyre cushions. Once again, a product that is we sourced from the UK. It's actually endorsed by Aston Martin in the UK, but it is also made of 95% recycled tyre crumb. So through our research, I was looking for tyre protective cushions to help prevent flat spotting for vehicles stored or are not utilised regularly. And yes, there are products out there that are made of all sorts of interesting materials. But I was looking for something that had an environmental factor to it, hence the recycled tyre crumb. And funnily enough, I'd been designing and delivering and supplying custom driver ramps around Sydney for using 98% recycled tyre crumb. So it fit very, very well with, I guess, the philosophy that we have in being sustainable environmentally.
And talking about that, is there one particular project that you really are very proud of, whether it's in doing a garage or helping somebody resolve a problem with a vehicle that they've got? You're talking about the ramps. Can you describe something that you've done that absolutely fixed your client's problem, that they're not then damaging a car, or they're able to use that space more efficiently.
Yeah. Look, there's a number of examples, but one that comes to mind most recently, in terms of the custom driveway ramps that we design and have manufactured here in Australia, is a gentleman living up on the Upper North Shore. He's a member of a very well-known car club, and he had some issues with a couple of his Porsches.
Right.
And they moved into a new home up on the Upper North Shore, and something that he didn't cross his mind at the time was the home was lovely, but it was accessing this wonderful garage space. The driver was prohibiting the safe entry and exit of his vehicle, so he was actually damaging his car, and he ended up leaving his vehicle in his garage for a month. He just couldn't bear to drive it out the driveway, and through one of his friends referred this gentleman to myself, and he contacted me initially through WhatsApp. And anyway, I just offered to let's have a live conversation. I'd like to better understand the issue that you're having. Anyway, long story short, we had this gentleman take a few photographs of his driveway, and I looked at them and I thought, well, is this something that's doable or not? Because obviously there can be some cases that are very extreme, and I want to be honest with our clients and not waste their time nor my time. So the result was that we actually delivered a custom driveway. I went over to his home. We took a number of different measurements, and I drew up a design of a driveway ramp made of 98% recycled tyre gum. And that solution was delivered. He said, how long is this going to take for this? And I said, look, be honest with you, I'd say probably somewhere between 3 to 4 weeks from today, because I need to actually draw it up, measurements and so forth, and then it has to be manufactured, so there'll be a custom mould that will need to be created for this particular ramp, or in sections, and that was actually delivered literally within the 4-week period. And I actually decided to go over to his home because they're actually self-installable, so they're not actually dyno bolted or anchored into the pavement, which some councils frown upon. So there's no need for us to do that. We do use a bonding compound, so they won't move because they're quite heavy. Because I felt this gentleman was someone who resonated quite well with me, I thought, I'm going to go over, and I had them delivered because I come up from Melbourne, had these ramps delivered, and I went over on a Sunday afternoon, and we invested a couple of hours, more chat than work, talking cars, to install these ramps. And I said, just let it sit for 24 hours, let everything settle, and then you're happy to use them tomorrow. And I received the phone call that following evening, and he was absolutely over the moon. He said, this is fantastic, they look great. They don't slip. He's got a couple of young kids too, so you don't want any safety issues there as well. The ramps are actually winged on the edges, so there's no trip zone at all. So we take that into consideration. Once again, safety is paramount. But he loved it. Another example would be of a client who had a garage, or has a garage, and it has one entry point, a single entry point, but he had a space to the side, the right-hand side of his garage, which was, it kind of turned into a workshop slash storage area, more storage area than anything else, and he had a vehicle parked outside in the driveway, which he really didn't like, and he wanted to get that vehicle into the garage, which he could. The space was there, but the accessibility was not. So we looked at that as a solution, and I offered one of our sliders, remote sliders, that just a low profile slider where you just drive straight onto the slider, the vehicle slides across into the space that would otherwise be inaccessible unless you were to do a 35-point turn, but and solve the problem for him, and he's got both cars in the garage. And now he's looking at extending the back of the garage to create a new work area. So, but look, I think it's all about solutions. So I think that there's a couple of examples, but there are many. But
you're talking about those blocks that were made here in Australia for the driveway. They sound like, so they get the mould. And can you then reuse that mould, or these one-off moulds for those? And then once you've got them, are they big blocks? So can you just pick them up and slot them in and just get it.
We're talking
fitted?
about the custom range still, of course.
Yeah.
Look, the moulds themselves, being custom, there's no one size fits all. So the moulds are made specifically based upon the design that I put forward to the manufacturer, and it is a family operated business in Melbourne that I work with. So once again, we like to. It's nice to have Australian owned and manufactured in Australia, and not offshore. With all respect, but so those particular moulds, can they be used for other applications? I would probably say likely not, because they are custom. And as I said, no two driveways are the same. So it's basically, and the moulds are made in such a way that they can be to some degree disassembled and partially reused, so you're not wasting it and throwing it away. Because once again, we like to reuse whatever we can. But I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, it kind of does, because I'm just thinking about, again, the sustainability and the modularization of that potentially means that if you've got a mold that could be reused because you've got a number of similar situations, it's all about trying to maximize what's being created for other purposes.
Absolutely. Look, and I would certainly endeavour to do that wherever it's practical to do so. But in some instances, it's just not. Look, it's...
Well, the other question, because you're talking about, you took photos, and clearly you'll take photos of a garage space, and then your mind gets into gear and thinking about how it can evolve. And you spoke about, your corporate life in business, but you're designing this stuff. So where did that come from? And did that come out of your corporate life, or is that something that later on you've got, I could design this myself? Are you a hand-drawn sketcher of things, or how do you design something once you've taken the photos? How does your brain get into gear to be able to think about the design of whether it's the garage or that driveway?
Look, I think from the garage space perspective, I think it's something innate, inbuilt in me since I was a young child. So, I never considered myself a designer per se, but I do have a vision. I do have vision, and I'm very visual.
Well, it is in the company name.
Well, that's right. Vision being the operative word. So, but look, I think it's it's a little bit, I think from my experiences I've had, I've always, in my spare time out around the corporate scene, when I worked in corporate for nearly 30 years, my downtime was always under the bonnet of a car, working in the garage, out with a car club, driving. That was it. People know Andrew as a guy, he just loves his cars. It wasn't so much about footy or other sports. It was always automotive, automotive. And my garage spaces, people say I'm a bit OCD when it comes to organisation. So I like things to be in their place and organised, and it makes it so much easier to work when you know where things are. So I think to answer that question, Stephen, the design maybe it's a little bit of a gift, but because I've been very practical, hands-on for decades, and I've through trial and error, I've had garage spaces that I've designed myself personally, and I felt, well, this is not quite right, so I'll rejig it, reorganise it. I think through trial and error, I think it just comes down to practical experience, that you get a feel for how things potentially maybe should be laid out. And I sort of mentioned earlier, beautifully inspiring, functional and entertaining, but also taking into account, it's not about what I want to do with someone's space, it's about, once again, it's a collaborative approach, it's a consultative approach. So I may have some ideas that I'll put forward to a client, friend, call them a friend of mine, our friend, fellow friend, but that may then start to initiate some thought themselves, and the feedback that they give me may change that direction of the design of that space. Do you know what I mean? But once through that collaboration between myself and the client, we can come up with something amazing. There are some that I'll leave it to you. It's up to you, and I'll create something that's practical. Whether it's they want a workshop area or whether they're not, don't want all workshop, or they want partial workshop, or they don't want a workshop element, just want a place that looks nice and inviting. Look, it's.
And do you use any design software to be able to give that visual look back to the client?
Yeah, so we do once we get a sort of a mental picture. I have a mental picture of what the layout's going to look like. And we may do a couple of little sketches myself.
Yeah.
My partner for Garage Vision Tek, the other co-founder of Garage Vision Tek originally. He together we will actually sit down. We do have a software package whereby we can start to create some actual renders, physical 3D renders of the space with the vehicles with the vehicles that they're looking to park in those spaces incorporated into the render.
Yeah.
So it's.
So if people want to use your skills and vision, how do they get in touch with you to be able to have that initial chat about what you could bring to their space?
I think, thanks, Stephen, once again. I think it's really important. My priority is to be able to have a live conversation.
Yeah.
I just invite a live conversation. They don't have to, but I think the best way to connect is live. Yes, we can email, and people can jump onto a website and they can inquire through the website.
Yeah.
But I'm more than happy as an automotive enthusiast to literally say, here's my contact number.
Yeah.
Please give me a call, or let's arrange a time that's going to be convenient for us both, and let's have a conversation and see where we need to go and what the possibilities are. It's all about imagining the possibilities.
Yeah. So I'll put the website links into the detail of the podcast, so people can open up that and click through and start making that connection with you online, and then from there you can then sit down with them one-to-one and get their own personal perspectives and views out, so you can then start thinking about that. So you're clearly a very human person in doing that. You're not just saying, well, give me a spec. You actually want to get so involved in this that you understand the passion behind it from your client's perspective.
Look, that's very true. And look, I'm not there to impose upon anyone's space. I'm really, as you mentioned, I'm a human, and we're all human. And technology is wonderful. Technology has its place. Yeah. But I think when it comes to what we're talking about here today, nothing beats that live conversation.
Yeah.
You can jump onto a website, or you can go to we do have a Facebook presence, and Instagram.
Yeah.
But I said I'd welcome the conversation and see where we can go with that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to also make clear at this point in time that I'm currently rebuilding our Garage Vision Tek website. So there are two websites.
Yep.
There is garagevisiontech.com.au, which is the design, bespoke design side, and then there is gvtgaragegear.com.au, which is the product solution side. And I really encourage people to, maybe start to think initially about the product solution side as a starting point. And I'm always happy to have a conversation about, because these products that we offer as solutions, they're not cleaning products per se. They're certainly value products, higher value products. So I think if someone is going to make that investment, it's wise to have a conversation and let's see if it is the best fit for them. And on that basis, it may lead to an alternative solution, or it may certainly confirm that is the right solution for them.
Yeah, and certainly with some of the products, they are for different sized vehicles, so you absolutely need to know the weight and the size of the vehicle that the product is going to get used for. Yep. So I would absolutely encourage everybody to do what I did, which was have a chat with you, Andrew, and say, this is what I've got, this is the problem that I'm struggling with, how can we resolve it?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, there's a product that is fit for purpose, and that's the starting point of a great working relationship.
I think that's critically important. It really is, and I think we say life is about relationships, experiences, and memories. And we all want great relationships. We want enduring experiences and wonderful memories that we can take with us.
Yes.
And, so being an automotive enthusiast myself, I just love having conversations. From the outset, as I mentioned, we're not there to sell what we have. We're there to see, do we have a solution, the right solution that's going to fulfill and exceed your expectations.
Yes.
And then let's build that relationship, whether it's through us, through some of our solutions or otherwise. If not today, maybe there's an opportunity for us tomorrow to fulfill an issue or problem, frustration you may have. So I would welcome, once again, having a conversation. And I think with social media, you can get carried away with social media sometimes. And look, it's a great thing. It has its place, but it's about getting the balance right between high tech and high touch. Because we are human beings, we're not humanoids, right? So, we can get that balance right, then, and I think people, once we start having a conversation, start to feel more comfortable that they're dealing with someone that's real. Yeah. And I will tell them like it is. I'm very black and white, and if I have to question anything, it's about being truthful and having integrity. My father's always taught me, have integrity with everything you do in life. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure to sit down and talk to you about, again, your vision and why you have, why you're helping other people with garages and with the equipment and bits and pieces. So much appreciated for you to coming over and having a chat, and great to learn a bit more about you as a person as well.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been my pleasure as well, and I appreciate you inviting me once again. Thank you. And I look forward to the audience and our fellow automotive enthusiasts having some contact going forward, and enjoying the journey of life.
That's right, and enjoying their cars a bit more.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great to catch up with Andrew and learn more about why he created his company and the products and services he provides for car enthusiasts, whether they're classic or not. And as I said in the interview, I do use a GVT-sourced quick jack for work on my cars, which means a safer work environment. And the Australian Motor Heritage Foundation recently released an economic value study of the historic vehicle industry, which suggests that owners of older cars contribute over $9 billion annually to the economy looking after their vehicles. And Garage Vision Tek is a local company that has tapped into that market. And talking of historic cars, as we do on this podcast, there are some great events coming up. The HSRCA Sydney Classic with Formula V and HQ Racing is this weekend, the 7th and 8th of June at Sydney Motorsports Park. The Gear Club is at One Raceway near Goulburn on the 11th of June, and the New South Wales Formula V State Championship is on the 21st of June, also at the Motorsport Park. If you have a club or event that you would like highlighted, send an email to stephen@motoringweekly.com.au and I'll be in touch. And don't forget to subscribe through your favourite podcast player, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Samsung or YouTube, and get the episodes delivered as they're published. Or simply subscribe to the website motoringweekly.com.au and you'll get notified when a new episode is published there as well. I'm Stephen Wells, and you've listened to Motoring Weekly, the podcast for the Australian historic road and racing community.